7:05 a.m. for the MPO meeting. I'm going to ask you all to please rise and the clerk do the invocation and roll call.
Your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And roll call, please.
Here.
Which one?
She's a councilman.
Oh, sorry. I was talking. I was breaking something.
Are you?
Commissioner Moore?
Here.
Commissioner Starkey?
Here.
Commissioner Wells?
Here.
Mayor Massad?
Here.
Commissioner Mariano?
Here.
And Chairman Hernandez.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Oakley's here also.
I apologize.
Okay.
All right, so I think we can have everybody, which is really nice to see all. This is the portion of our meeting for public comments. Anyone in the audience like to address the board on any item here? Please do so now. Seeing none, we have the approval of the meeting minutes from both the June 8th meeting as well as the July 13th meeting. You've had a chance to review. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have the MPO Advisory Committee reports. We're going to start with the CAC meeting. Who's here doing that? Ms. Kelly. Good morning.
Good morning. Way to start off the day, okay. It's great, everybody's here today. Thank you all so much. I'm going to try and be brief because I'm going to catch up on the last two meetings. We did have a hurricane in between all that. So back in September, we did meet and we had a great presentation from the Planning Department on the Connected City and all the wonderful things that are happening over there with the Connected City. Great hope for what may come to the whole entire county at one time. So we also sent out some letters to the CAC members, and we've got a full quorum now, and I'd like to thank all of you for sending not only just someone to represent, but getting the alternates filled as well. I think we've got a nice crew on the Citizens Advisory Council, and thank you all for that. We discussed other groups that we might approach so that we can start going out to the local HOAs. We suggested Kona, PACA, some of the other neighborhood associations where we can get out and get the word to MPO so that people are more aware and interactive of what's happening in the planning process and all the change that's coming to the county. The fourth thing that we talked about was the Pasco's bus system, PCPT. And we got a great report from Kurt about all the new lines that he has been put on and how well they've been received. So you'll hear from him today about all that. We were also given an opportunity through FDOT to deal with a thing called the Tampa Bay Next Citizens Transportation Academy. And I don't know if any of you have received the emails on that, but there are several of us that are attending that. It's a weekly webinar from 12 to 1. And it's actually pretty interesting. I think it's a 6 or 7 week program, and I'll keep you posted on that as soon as we find out how it all turns out. And then the last thing I want to bring to your attention is something that I had discussed with Congressman Bilirakis at an event recently. In Holiday, there's a street, it's called Bartelt Road, and it travels between US 19 and Arcadia. And it's got a lot of veterans groups that have businesses, the VFWs there, the certain groups that are there. Also at the end, there's a Veterans Alternative where Brian Anderson does his combat veterans help. So we were tossing around the idea of possibly renaming that street, and I want to bring that to your attention because it's something I'm sure is going to have to pass through this board. Something along the lines of possibly Veterans Way, in a way that we can represent and, honor our veterans in that particular area. So just wanted to let you know that that's something that we're going to be looking into, and I'll bring that back to you as time goes on. Does anyone have any questions for us?
Great, thank you. Questions for Ms. Miller?
Just before you pick a name, you have to, I think, run it through our staff to make sure there isn't another road
Okay.
that they have these rules when you pick a name, so just
Perfect. I
work
can
with our
check with
staff.
GIS. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you, Ms. Miller. Appreciate that. Next item is the BPAC. I think Dr. Stovall?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
We had a great meeting back in August and talked about a number of items, but the things that interest you, I think, the most is the efforts being made by county staff and consultants to find out what the citizens who ride bicycles really want. They have spent a number of hours in the San Ann area talking to the road riders because, you know, they have issues with shoulders, and so the idea is which roads will they actually ride the most, so that if there becomes an initiative to widen some shoulders, you want to pick the ones that spend your money wisely, get the biggest bang for your buck. So that's been going, that study, and I understand they're getting close to having recommendations. There is also a project going to plan some trail extensions on the east side to connect to the Withlacoochee Trail, which is all very positive. Some of us in BPAC are doing the Citizens Academy with FDOT, as Kelly mentioned, and that's, I think, very helpful. I think we're about halfway through. There's about 3 more sessions, and those are Fridays at noon if people ask you. We had a Tri-County BPAC the next month, and Tri-Counties are always good with Pinellas and Hillsborough because in those more urban counties, particularly in Pinellas with the Pinellas County Trail System, there's a lot of things we can learn from them when we share, and I believe that one of the persons in Pinellas is vice chairman of the state foundation committee that gives out money, so it's always good to talk to people like that so you keep track of what our opportunities may be. The other thing I want to leave you with today is we have now, I think, really great county staff, and you should be proud of the work they do. They represent all of us well, and they're forward-thinking, so I believe that we're moving in the right direction. So,
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner Sharkey?
I always try and attend the meetings when I can, and I really wanted to come to that Tri-County, but I just couldn't make it. But I did get a note from there, from Gunther, who said that, that the Hillsborough County said that every time they were repaving a road, they add a bike shoulder where there is none, not a bike lane, but a bike shoulder. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, Richard Hartman, Active Transportation Planner for the MPO. And what they were talking about for Hillsborough County is when they have adequate right-of-way and that there is a safety need, such as a high crash corridor or a transportation need to improve bicycle safety, then they will look at adding a shoulder, and whenever possible. It's not all the time, but it's something that they consider every resurfacing project.
And who funds that? Is it extra money to add the shoulder that they're receiving from somewhere, or?
No, it's more of who owns the road. So they would look at county funds, and I'm not sure about where they receive the funding for all their roads, but it's something that they do countywide as just a matter of the MPO, looking at the roads that they have control over, the county roads. It's something that they consider, but the funding comes from different sources.
And as we work on this northeastern bike routes, we've talked about this, and I don't think I've yet heard the answer. Hernando County used federal money to put a shoulder on Spring Lake Road, I believe it was. And where are we in asking for some money to help, because we've had fatalities up on our roads? Does anyone know?
Well, we'll be getting into that a bit more later in this presentation, but we do want to report that we do have an initial draft of the Northeast Hills study, and that we'll be looking at shoulders, and then also part of that study includes where funding can possibly come from to do these infrastructure and road safety improvements that might be recommended.
Okay, great. And I have to leave at 11, so I don't know if it's possible where that is on the agenda. I haven't had time to look at it, but if we
Is
can.
that going to be in the next report, or is that an action item this morning?
I believe this is as a result of some requests that we received in the last 2 or 3 days that we'll be talking about where funding comes from FDOT projects, transportation alternative projects, and things of that sort. It's not directly related to the Northeast Hills study.
Say it again?
Now's as good a time as any.
Great.
to do
All right, since Commissioner Starkey's here, and I was told.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Dr. Sobel? Yes, sir. We've got this project coming up on 5A Road, it's going to be a trail, it's going to be connecting up from Willow Road, running all the way to the hospital library, connecting up to US 19. Years ago, we tried to get a trail done, to get a wider trail, they built the sidewalks in US 19 running all the way up to Sunrise Solid before. They didn't have the room to the drainage was out there, that they didn't want to expand it out.
Yes.
We've now paved Old Dixie Highway down from Hudson Avenue going right across, that's where that 5A would be. Have you guys looked at, or would you look at, as you're going forward, go take a look at the potential with the slip on land that runs for about 1.5 miles. There's a sidewalk that's almost connecting all the way out there. But they have trails programs with slip mud.
Yes.
With the state.
Yes.
And it would be probably a great asset to be able to get people that are going up to that farm,
Sure.
want to go for that ride, actually go up there inside. All that slip mud land along the thing is a trail that they built anyway for access around the edge, which frankly with fire safety, with all the fires we had up and down
Oh, yeah.
District Highway.
Right.
I've talked with some state people, they think it's probably a good idea to put a trail there, so
Yep.
if you have a fire, instead of getting it across the road or dealing with it on Old Dixie,
Yep.
it's actually on the road itself.
That sounds like a good opportunity,
Kind
yeah.
of roll that along a little bit.
We'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, sir. I see that there's a Tri-County BPAC meeting. Is there a separate report on that, or I know there was reference made to it. Is there a separate report? No? Okay. All right.
Wait, are you,
Are we going to do the item that Commissioner Starkey at?
It's your pleasure.
Yeah, that's fine, because I know she has an interest in being here, and so this was something that was,
So the BPAC and the advisory committees go through a process to prioritize projects, and then the entities, local entities, the county, Dade City, have the possibility of applying for funds. One of the funds is through FDOT. It is, it used to be called Transportation Alternatives TA money, and we still sort of use that vernacular. The newest federal legislation changed that. It's now called the Block Grant Set Aside. It has mostly the same requirements. And so we've started a process to look at how successful or how many projects we've applied for in that in the past 10 years. We don't have that done yet, but what we do have, FDOT provided us with the current 2018 to 2022 or 2023 projects in the 3-county area, Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco. And there's about 285 projects in that category in the next 6 years. And this shows the total funding that is available or has been received by the different entities in that time period. So see Pasco, a little over $4 million.
how was Hernando twice what we are? I'm just curious, when we have 8 times the population.
These are the projects that are selected. I'm not sure how, I would guess they've applied for more projects. What we also don't have is an exact total of what projects have been applied for from our local entities, so.
This is the information I asked Deborah to kind of gather the
Yep,
other day.
we're still getting the 10-year retrospective, but this is the next 5 or 6 years worth of projects, and so.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Moore?
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Starkey on this, too. If you, 4.2 million, and then Hernando at 7.6, almost 7.7. What are we doing what are we doing that allows a county, much smaller size and much smaller population to receive twice as much funding as a county our size? So everything else kind of, correlates. If you look at Hillsborough at 11 and Pinellas at 11, and we're at 4.
So that's something that I'll be looking into, try to figure out what
But didn't
we're applying
Commissioner,
for.
well, I understand that, but Commissioner Starkey just stated that she had asked for an update, I think, today, is that?
Well,
or-
because, I've been dealing in this trails world for a long time, long before I was ever an elected official. And so I was hearing from the Hillsborough and Pinellas staff that they were using Pasco enhancement funds because we weren't asking for anything. I had the same experience when I was on the Swift Mud Board. And I told my board this, but you guys haven't heard this. When I would drive down to the PA Basin Board meetings, there would be maybe 1 or 2 Pasco projects listed out of $25 million worth of cooperative funding. We were maybe asking for $500,000 worth of projects. And this happened through all 6 years that I was on the board and all 7 of my husband's. And I would call John Gallagher and say, why aren't we asking for more, for something? And he'd said, we don't have the match. And so, he didn't want to do whatever it took, needed the board to be able to have that match. I don't know what the rules are with this, if we needed to have a match, but I can tell you, we have shafted our citizens for as long as I can remember, for whatever reason.
Commissioner Moore.
So, does there need to be a match?
There is required to be matched, usually 20%.
So it's not, okay, so it's 20% though?
Right.
It's not a 50-50.
I don't believe it's 50/50 in Florida.
No, it's actually 100% if you're going with the TA program.
Well, I stand corrected.
So it's 100%, not
So
20%.
you're saying it's a 100% match?
It is.
So
It's-
Hernandez
yeah,
County's gonna come up with
No,
7
no,
point?
it's 100% federally.
minutes.
Yeah, there's no local dollars required.
Oh, there's
Yes,
no
match.
local, you're saying there's no local dollars required?
You just have to ask for it?
So it's 100%?
Yeah, so it's just.
How long have you been, sorry, how long have you been helping us, or helping, in your position?
Oh, about 12, 15 years.
So what do you think is going on with us? Where, are we just not asking? I want you to be frank, I'm sorry. I'm a frank ask.
Well, the process is more than just submitting an application, which we've met with staff. We talked with Debbie Bulldog on the TAC, and it's a combination of, it's a balance between what the MPO is applying for versus what the county can produce based on their, their manpower type situation. So the most projects that Pasco, from what I understand, will ever have funded typically in a given 5-year or every year is 3, maybe 4 projects because of the county's workload to be able to manage those projects. And in fact, we did fund 3 of them this cycle. It's a combination of that. It's also getting a proper application, making sure the right-of-way is there, that there isn't an easement requirement. The federal rules for that LAP program have significantly ratcheted up the oversight and the various steps that the local governments have to go through to keep it on track. So it's just it's a combination of all that.
So, we represent the people up here. And at the end of the day, you could say the county commission is responsible that we are at those numbers. But we need to hold our county administrator, and through him, our staff, accountable that we are in this position. And I think we need our county administrator and our staff to tell us what they need, what kind of tools they need, so this doesn't keep happening. So we can all work together and fix this, because that, to me, is like a travesty. So.
Commissioner Starkey, just real quick, I've learned just on the municipal level that when I first started on City Council New Porchy, we just weren't asking. We weren't filling out the grant applications. We weren't asking. If you don't ask, I mean, it sounds like we're dropping the ball. Let's ask for the money. I mean, Hernando's getting double what we're getting because we're not asking. It's absurd. I don't understand.
Yeah, it is, with 100% especially, it's a pretty.
Like the Hacienda Hotel sat there just rotting for years and years and years. We hired a economic development director, and we started asking for money. We've gotten over $1 million from the state to help refurbish it so far. So why are we not asking?
Mayor, can I say something? This is the 5-year work program, 2018 to 23. This is just a snapshot. When we get you the final report for the historical 10 years, DOT always says they ensure that it's equitable across county lines. In fact, Pasco County in this 5 years, we basically have half the population as Hillsborough and Pinellas, and we're getting about half of that. When you see Hernando getting that much money, if you go in the past 5 years, they probably didn't get as much.
I look forward to seeing those numbers. I asked them to go back about 15 years.
Yeah, we're working on that,
Okay.
Commissioner. We're
All right.
working on it.
You know, when we get this all done, it'd be great to sit down and just analyze this and see,
And if you
maybe
look
we're
on-
doing great.
In
I don't
our
know.
TA priorities, they funded the top 4 in this 5-year work program. And as Brian said, it's also, we have to work with Debbie to see how much they can produce. And they actually been charged to now, maybe, I don't know if we're gonna talk about this one project that the city of Port Richey and New Port Richey won. That's at number 13, and that's, I don't know if they can take on any more projects or not.
Are you talking about this list?
Yeah.
Commissioner Marion.
Commissioner Mariano.
Councilman said you got money from the state this past year for the overpass on US 19, correct?
That was rescinded, by the way. I was going to bring that up at the end, so we're back to square one.
You're kidding.
No. I don't know how many more people need to die on 19, but yeah, the money was rescinded.
And here's my thought process. If we're getting 100% from the states and the feds to go with this, and if that money could be resurrected again to go forward, and the state maybe looked at, okay, we've got $1 million of our own money that we're gonna put into it, bring it through the state, does that make that project more viable to get more legs to go forward?
I would be almost certain that any local money you put towards a project, especially on a system like, as part of the statewide system, is going to be looked on very favorably during the process.
Might be the right time to step up and put that ask in there too then.
We do have that one project in the TMA priorities, so we did put it in there last year.
But I'm not gonna be on that list.
Yeah.
So I think what you're hearing, obviously, there's an interest in
More
wanting to know
applications,
why,
yes.
even though you're showing us these numbers, it doesn't all kind of make sense. And I do, going to your comment about, yes, from the municipalities, I know in a project we're getting, I think we didn't realize all the regs, and we ended up hiring a consultant that cost us quite a bit of change. But it's about education, and I think, yeah, and I agree with Commissioner Starkey, especially I know in Northeast Pasco, where we're really trying to well, do it with everything, streets and trails and all sorts of things, is just being aware that that money's there. And I know it's a complicated process, but obviously, we're growing like crazy in Pasco County, so there is a need to, while we can do it, to make sure we can respond to those needs, because there clearly is an interest from this board.
So,
Mr. Casper?
Rick, the good news is Rick is on board,
Bless you.
and he will work next month. Our goal will bring back the retrospective, so the 15-year snapshot from 10 years ago to 5 years out, and see how we're doing application-wise. Then we'll try to work with Dr. Stovall, the local entities, and see what projects are out there that we can.
I think that would be helpful, just
can
to
go
see,
after.
yeah, give us a snapshot of where we're at and where we've been, and so that is said, I think this is not only with this project, but I know other things we've talked about
Yeah.
with trails that everybody else was getting their, I want to say a lion's share. We got a great big share, and we seem to be certainly lagging behind, and if there's something we're not doing, or, that we need to do to assist you to get that going,
Sounds
then
like-
certainly just let us know. Mr. Beatty?
I just wanted to add a couple things. The department has been working in the last couple of years to try to improve the process, make it more streamlined, make it easier for the local governments to apply. And I think last year we told you about a beta program. It's called the DOT Dashboard, Project Dashboard, where they sit down at the computer and they can submit the applications on the computer. In our January kickoff meeting with the MPOs in the area, we're going to require that to be used this year. So there will be no more paper applications. Everything will come electronically, and everyone can see it, all the staff, DOT, and some of the other reviewers, so it makes it a little more efficient as well. The other thing is the numbers are going to go up and down. It varies by year, by
That's
every
why we want a
5
big
years.
picture.
Yeah. So don't get too freaked out about what you see in a particular 5 years.
Well, we look forward to the next meeting then, if not sooner, so we can have that information, so we can get the bird's eye view and then bring it down so we can understand it from a county's perspective and what we can do to make it better. So with that, let's move on. I know we have a lot of, unless, Mr. Casper, was there something else? I'm sorry, Commissioner Mariano, sorry.
From the side.
From the side.
I want to make a motion because I think it's important. I mean, I'm looking at the previous meetings, we had the discussions. I didn't see anything done from some of the discussions we'll talk about later. But I'm going to make a motion that we go forward to look to submit the US 19 overpass to try to get it on that list. And we also add the 5A call it the Old Dixie Trail, and get that on the list and try to get that submitted as another ask.
Second.
Okay, but what do you mean get
Motion
it?
and a second and discussion. Go ahead,
Discussion.
Commissioner Sarr.
What do you mean get it submitted to who?
I want it on the list to ask.
So so in order for it to get funding, it has to be, I believe it has to be on a state opportunities map. So there's a process. And so,
It needs to get on the MPO's priority list for TA applications.
okay,
If you all want, we can bring that item back next month, and you can add, we can score the project that Commissioner Mariano brought up. It's not on the list right now.
right.
So maybe the motion needs,
Fund the project that's not on the priority list.
Okay.
so maybe make the motion saying that we need to bring it back next month with, and have it on that list so we can score it? Is that, or do you need it specifically
Sounds
as
good.
that, or just have it?
Okay, so who looks at it to score?
It's gonna be myself, Craig, Rick, and we're gonna work with the engineering services.
Okay, great.
Usually Debbie attends them.
Further
All right, thanks.
discussion? There's a motion and a second. Do we need to restate that motion, or are you good with the way we had it, with bringing it up?
We just need to sit down with Commissioner to make sure which project exactly,
Okay.
from where to where,
In the
and
motion.
we'll map it out.
All right, so let's just restate the motion in the second. I know we,
Restate the motion to include the US 19 overpass that Newport Richie's applied for, as well as the 5A/connection Old Dixie Highway Trail.
I think you're going to have to, Madam Chair,
ahead.
I think you're going to have to split those, because one is a motion to ask for state money to put the overpass, was it the Madison? What's it called, that overpass?
That's an
Marine
overpass
Parkway.
for Marine Parkway.
Marine Parkway, that's one thing. I think that's one motion, and I think your motion is to ask the MPO to start looking at that trail to score it to be able to go on the MPO priority list. And those are two different things.
Do
You
we
can't
need
ask
to-
for money if it's not on the MPO priority list, right? Right. So
all right,
let's,
so, thank you, Commissioner Starkey. Let's go ahead and break it
So
into
first motion,
two.
US 19 overpass Marine Parkway to be submitted to the state priority list.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second for the discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Second.
Second, try to add the 5A trail, which we've already got set up. Maybe I'll do that separately. I'm going to do two motions. The 5A trail to get this applied for, to get funding through the state grant.
it's not on the MPO priority list. There's a,
Then to put it on the state priority.
right, well, they have to
They will
write,
bring back to us at the next meeting so we
Right.
can analyze it and rank it.
Right.
So
Well,
that's-
well, let me answer this. With 5A, isn't that already set up?
What's the
No.
motion?
It's-
You just need to direct staff to bring
Bring it
that to the
back.
next meeting so you can actually.
Yeah,
have
let
a
them,
motion.
let them, all right. My motion will be to direct staff to look at the 5A trail, which is already set, and also the Old Dixie Trail connection through the Swiftmud property, to bring them back to us to find out what it takes to go put it in the trail.
We have a motion, we have a second for the discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are we good? Okay. Anything else before we move on to the action items that are on our agenda? All right. Item A, annual roll forward amendments for the adopted tip for fiscal year 17-18 through 21-22. Mr. Casper.
Happy New Year. October 1st is the start of the new federal fiscal year. This item is rolling 4 projects. 3 of them are mappable. You can see on the other, on the map. And one is not mappable. It's a program with FTA money. It's rolling them from 2017 into the current year, 2018. Like I said, 4 projects, just under $13 million, $12.9 million into the current year so that they can spend the money and move on with those 4 projects. Are there any questions?
Questions of Mr. Casper? If not, what's the pleasure of the board? We need a motion to review and approve the annual forward amendment to
So moved.
adopt it. We have a motion, we have a second by Mr. Oakley. All in favor? Further discussion? All in
Aye.
favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner,
Any opposed?
just a point of order, it requires a roll call vote. Tip amendment.
Oh, sorry, I did not know that. We can do that.
Okay, it did not say that. We just, I didn't see it here, but okay, we roll call vote, please.
where's the clerk?
We need a clerk.
She's down there. She's, oh, she was.
Councilman Starkey?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Wells,
Aye.
Mayor Massad,
Aye.
Commissioner Mariano,
Aye.
Commissioner Oakley,
Aye.
and Chairman Hernandez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Second item is the MPO-PL Agreement Amendment Number 1. Mr. Casper?
This is a very similar amendment. It is taking the money from the FHWA from 2017, rolling it into 2018, and adding the 2018 dollars. It is part of the funding for the MPO staff, what we do. You can see the distribution. So 600,000 is our 2018 allocation, and then we're carrying over a little over $500,000 in addition to that.
Questions for Mr. Casper? Seeing none, is this a regular vote or roll call? It does not indicate it's a
Regular
roll
vote.
call. Okay.
Move approval?
We have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item C, Section 5305, fiscal year 2017-18 allocation revised. Mr. Casper?
This is identical to the previous item, except it is FTA, federal transit money, and not federal highway money, rolling it from past into the present and adding the present 2018 dollars to the MPO amendment.
Question?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The 2018 calendar for MPO committees and boards. I noticed that July and August are on there. I think didn't last year we talked about August being a month off? So when I looked at that, I noticed, I think it was one or the other. And I noticed on here we have both, so I don't know if there was a change, but.
Well, it's, we don't know where we're at. We are doing the long-range plan update over
Okay.
the next 2 years, and we're not sure exactly which month we're going to need items. So we put them both as placeholders, and then as
Okay.
we get through closer to those, we'll know which one we can skip.
Madam Chair, when you're
Do I see, I think I saw a hand down there, Commissioner Mariano?
Yes.
You had a question?
I'm just going to say, let's eliminate July 3rd meeting.
So, right, you've got, Madam Chair, sorry.
Yep.
We've got, did you check with the board calendar?
We did as much as possible.
You can't do as much as possible. You've got to go with the board calendar. We have a break for about a month and a half, so there can be no MPO meetings during that time. Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's July.
As I said, I didn't know if when I saw this, it was one or the other, that I know this came up last year as well, so there is 1 month where we do not meet, or that's been the case for the
Yeah,
last
so-
several years.
You need,
Typically, it's the August meeting that MPO would cancel, but we will,
you need to work with the county administrator on, and look at the county schedule. We worked this out, so there is a time frame that some people will not be around.
Well, we have a board meeting July 10th.
Commissioner Mariano?
July 3rd is,
I mean, I think if we look at the August meeting, to keep it, move it back a couple of weeks would be a better go.
Yeah.
At least when the kids are closer back into school.
Push it back, exactly.
Past that.
Mhm.
So you can still have your August meeting, keep it on that frame, but just move it back a couple of weeks till, let's say, after school starts.
Cancel July, like Commissioner
Cancel
Mariano.
July.
It's the July 12th would be the meeting you would cancel.
It's,
So we'll cancel the July, yeah, that's the MPO board meeting, is July 12th, so we'd cancel that one, and then August 9th, you said you would move
well,
it.
that's CAC, never mind.
well, if you move it back a couple of weeks, it'd be in July then.
no,
it's-
move it forward.
August, if you move the August meeting a couple of weeks back, it'll.
No, I
fall.
think
Wait, he
meant
meant forward.
It means forward.
But then it's going to
It'll
be
be
close,
forward
then it's going to be
down.
close to the September 13th.
Actually, I was looking at the August 1st, but that was a different meeting, but we're scheduled for August 9th.
All right.
So if you move it back even just a week,
I mean,
that should give you that cushion for school.
you mean forward,
Forward or back?
Backward.
Like,
but I think that's during
Like-
our break.
August 6th.
How about you do this, and do we need
Oh, we have board
to,
meeting August 7th. That's our first board meeting back after the break.
I think the 9th is okay.
All right, then maybe that's all right then. Okay, I was looking at the first meeting.
you want to leave it with August 9th as a
There's a lot of-
placeholder and check the calendar, as the commissioners have mentioned, and then just come back and just confirm that for us at the next meeting, but we'll go with the schedule with July being eliminated and with the August, just confirmation of that date, next meeting.
Well, I think So I think August is okay then. Is that-
August 9th
okay
is
now?
gonna be
What do you
okay.
I'd
think?
still rather see it back a week, but I'll be okay with it, so.
What about moving it ahead a week is what I'm saying? Move it to the next week, the next week of August.
August
In the
16th.
second week.
This is-
August 16th.
Got to work with DOT schedule.
Right, that's because there's,
Go with the
there's lots
16th.
of other,
16th is a better
that's
day.
why there's lots of other schedules though, don't, you should be looked at?
There's plenty of time to work on that.
I think the 16th would be better.
Yeah.
And so I'm hearing, am I getting a nods, consensus? Nobody cares right now from August because nobody knows. Tentatively put August 16th, is that what I'm seeing? I know we've got to check with our other partners here that attend these meetings. Wanna-
I think that's plenty of notice for everybody
Yeah,
else.
so do August 16th and just change that on the calendar. We're going to eliminate the July 12th date.
He's looking.
Will that work for you? Am I waiting for something over there, or am I just, no? Okay. All right, so are we all good with that? This will require approval of this schedule using the August 16th date.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Starkey. Second, Mr. Oakley. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next one is the CAC appointments or reappointments. Mr. Casper?
We had several of the CAC members' terms expired. This is reappointing those members who desire to be, and I believe there was one member who did not desire to be reappointed.
Who are these people again?
We still have a lot of vacancies, right?
Yes,
on
we are
these?
working, we've been discussing with the CAC additional groups that could be members. The
Yours is Rob
CAO, I
Circle.
think, is one of them. Try to get formal representation from them. But we are working on some names and agencies we'd like to see participate in our process to bring forward and add to the CAC. We're just
Okay.
not fully along on that process yet.
Odom.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I could, I'd like to replace Dan Sullivan, who's my CAC member, for Jim Norwood. I just need to get the board's approval for that.
Move to approve?
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
You see yours is vacant?
Motion
I'll
carries.
get
Thank
you his information.
Outstanding.
Are there any other board members here that want to fill in their vacancy that have, in addition to what Mr. Casper said, are there any nominees, appointments? Okay. With that, let me see, we need to make a motion to approve, or in addition to the one there that was made by Commissioner Wells, to approve, motion to approve the extended terms of reappointments of those members on CAC. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Mariano, second Commissioner Wells. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. BPAC members and appointments or reappointments. I guess this is the time of year you do that.
Yes,
I will
it
say
is.
it's helpful. You did give us the attendance, and I think that was asked by several members here to do that, so appreciate letting us know if our appointees do attend the meetings. So thank you for that. That's helpful. So go ahead and update us on that list, please.
Again, this is a two-year appointment, reappointing, and I want to say 3 members to the BPAC that all desired. Everybody, that's a popular committee. Everybody who's on that is motivated to stay on it.
It's a good group of people.
It is a good group. Very
Especially when you got Tyrone on it right there, right?
So you just need a motion for that?
Right.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a
Madam-
second.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Yes, Commissioner
How
Mariano.
how did the 10 get selected? Is it just that all applied, or did we appoint them individually, or how
I
did this
don't know
happen?
the answer to
So
that.
several years back, we did requests for, when we first made up this committee. So we asked countywide and we advertised for those who were interested in serving, and these are the folks that applied. I mean,
Right.
some of them are newer than then, but most of them came from back when we
Right. I'm going to go with the motion, but I'd like to see the addresses and let everyone see where the addresses are for where these people live. Thank you.
Thank you. I do know that, I know the folks that we have on, and especially they're very passionate, I guess would be the word I use, and so it is great to see that they are very much interested in moving forward with all the initiatives that we have, so I appreciate that.
I know I have one person I recommended for their Gunther. I don't really know the other people, but getting to meet them, going to the meetings.
All right. I think we had a motion. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Mariano, we do have a motion? Do we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Oh, we did, okay. Did we vote? No, I don't
Well,
think we did.
just limited discussion,
Yep, sir.
limited discussion. So you did provide a list of, attendance list. A couple members do stand out. I'm not going to call them out, but there's
They're
a decent amount of
absentees.
orange on there. So you mentioned that people, the majority are passionate and want to stay involved, but I'm looking at
John Boucher?
quite a couple people that missed quite a few meetings.
Actually, this John person, number 3, I don't think he's been to one. Maybe we shouldn't
So
keep
just
him
for
on.
clarification, I was responding to the ones that I know from past, the people that I know from Pasco, they're very
Oh, no, you-
passionate, and I
that's-
don't know,
that's-
yes,
staff said that.
yes, okay. So, yes, that is right. So, again, that list, which is helpful to us to see who does attend or not attend, and without, I guess we can call out names because it's a public record list, but there are some folks. So what would you like to do with those folks? Because we are being asked to reappoint this list. Do we need to pull some of these?
Yeah, I actually, Madam Chair, I see 3 people who maybe have never attended a meeting, so maybe we need to find 3 more. So,
That would be number 5, 6, where's the third one?
10. Number 10, number 8, and number 3. I don't know any of these people, but, if they're not attending, we shouldn't be.
Yeah, we always say that, when these appointments aren't made for, to stack up your resume, and we need people that are going to be involved. So I'm not saying calling these people out, but some people, want to be on boards or committees because they want to put on their resume. That's not what this is all about, right?
Rick Hartman again, or Richard Hartman for the record. I would appreciate it, the members I've met, as Commissioner Starkey mentioned, have been very passionate, have been excellent to work with, especially Dr. Stovall. And when I put this together, going back through the record, this attendance, and read the bylaws, what I would request to this board or ask is that, given being new on board, that have the opportunity to discuss the attendance with each of these members and find out, is it just a geographic difficulty? Because we try to shift.
I was going to say, you flip-flop, though. You go back and don't you move?
Right. We had been, and then we're talking about perhaps trying to find more of a centralized location as a steady basis, but that's a discussion for the DPAC as well, to see what their preference would be. But I'd like to have the opportunity to reach out and talk to these people personally, to see what the challenges are, see what their future plans are, and then if there is a disinclination to attend or be active, then come back to the MPO and discuss alternative selections.
So could table it for a month.
Yeah,
So we're
let's do
asking to table this for a month. Now, I do want, and I mentioned 5 and 6. What is, it says NA, so did they not attend, are they not coming to anything? Do
They're
they
new
not exist?
members.
They what?
They were
Oh,
not
they're new,
members
so
at
that's
that
why we have no record, okay.
Yes.
So,
And and kind of piggybacking on what Commissioner Mariano was saying, it would be good that all parts of the county are represented on this.
Yes.
So it would be good to know if,
Address.
what, I don't know how we divide it up, but east, west, central,
Yeah,
knowing which part of the county they're in.
And we have that as a market area. Perhaps we could just.
Yeah,
go by
and
that guidance.
which market area, yeah.
East, west, central, and such, but we'll get the address information and look at how it lays out, and then we'll make concerted efforts and agree to any location that's underrepresented as well.
Okay.
Councilman Starkey?
I just want to reiterate, I agree with Commissioner Moore. Feel free to reach out to them, but if they haven't made one meeting in 12 months, obviously they're not too passionate about being on the board, and it shouldn't just be a resume builder.
Right, understandable. So we'll come back if the board allows us to table this matter for a month and come back with a report on what we find.
That's good.
So by consent, we're okay tabling it and coming back. But yeah, and I will echo what everyone else said here. This is something, again, we're working very hard in our county for connectivity and just the whole bicycle pedestrian stuff. So it is important. And if they don't want to be there, and if they're busy, and let's move on and find others that can. So we look forward to seeing you next meeting to
Okay.
update us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So
For the record, Commissioner Stuckey has to withdraw her motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, so
Motion withdrawn.
And
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
So
Commissioner Mariano.
if we could, let's get a list from staff so we all know what the addresses are, everyone as
Right,
well.
just like the other one with the CAC, if we know where all these folks are coming from. And I know we're doing this even, it is helpful, because I think even on the tourist development, I'm looking to Commissioner Starkey, because it's helpful to see as the
Trying to
county continues
balance.
to grow. Yeah, we want to have equal representation or a balance, as she indicated, of folks in the community. So I think that will be helpful, especially now when,
So we'll get a map. What I'll try to do is put all the advisory committees on them with, so BPAC, TAC, CAC.
that would
So you
help.
can see sort of what the distribution of
I think that would
representation
be
is for all of
helpful.
them.
Perfect. All right, thank you, sir. All right, so that was the BPAC appointment, so we're tabling that. Item G, the NHS system update. Mr. Casper.
This is a fairly regular item. FDOT has looked at how the roads are functioning. There are 2 roads that need to be increased from a minor arterial to a principal arterial, and 1 road that needs to be conversely taken from principal arterial down to a minor arterial. This does impact eligibility for funding and also how the roads are tracked. Federal legislation requires the principal arterials, which are part of the national highway system, to meet certain goals and performance requirements. The MPO will be undertaking a complete review of the functional classes from local streets through the interstate as part of the kickoff for the next long-range plan. But this is an interim step to, I guess, get these roads onto the and national highway system or off as appropriate.
This is your district.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Casper on this NHS system update? No questions?
Interesting. Okay.
It is interesting.
Do-
So
do-
the action is to approve the proposed changes. Is there a motion or what's the
I'll make
pleasure
that
of the board?
motion.
So a motion, Commissioner Starkey.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Oakley. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item H is evaluation of measures of effectiveness on our public participation plan.
So-
Mr. Casper.
One of the key items that all public agencies do is talk to the public. This, the public participation plan outlines how we are going to talk to the public, and one of the items in there is to also evaluate how well that is working. We are at the end of the 2014 public participation plan. We're evaluating how well it worked, and we will use that to update for the 2018 public participation plan. This, as part of the analysis, we will bring back a more detailed result, but right now, we're looking for any guidance, actions you would like us to do in regards to public participation. In general, we met our requirements and our desires, although we can always do better. One of the things we're looking at doing more heavily, more of an electronic social media web outreach, and also instead of having meetings where we ask the public to come to us, we're going to make a more concerted effort to go out to where we already know the public's going to be, whether it's HOA meetings or farmers markets or whatever, so go where there's already meetings going on. So we can, it's a more cost-effective way of getting word out. Are there any questions or any guidance you'd like to provide before?
Questions for Mr. Casper on this, this public participation update?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Mariano.
We just talked about we're struggling with time allocation as far as getting projects submitted and brought through. Rather than emphasizing too much of doing the public outreach, I'd like to see those resources put to get these projects funded, because people would be much rather see the projects done than you to go talk about how you want to go do projects.
Thank you, sir. Additional questions for Mr. Casper? So you're asking us to approve the draft evaluation today?
Yes, if you can.
So we have a motion, Commissioner Oakley, second Commissioner Moore. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving right along. We are on item A, the TMA Leadership Group Facilitation. Mr. Casper?
This is requesting authorization to sign the contract or the agreement with a third-party neutral that facilitates the transportation management area. It's the 3-county Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco. There's a third-party facilitator to make sure that the meetings happen.
Move to approve?
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. this, you guys have anything with this or some?
Nope.
Okay.
We're
Um,
just wondering what our workshop is.
All right, that's, item J, letter of support for, I'm going to call it the Tiger Grant application.
Pasco
Ms.
County
Casper.
is submitting a request for funding through the Tiger system from
Absolutely.
USDOT.
I don't think you need to say anything more. Move to approve.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Next is the status reports. I know we have a few things because we had a meeting canceled because of the hurricane, so we're going to start with the 2017 Tampa Bay TMA certification report. Mr. Casper, we're just going to keep you there, right, the whole
Yep.
meeting?
Well, actually, I'm going to go to the Federal Highway Representative, Teresa. Every 4 years or every 5 years, each MPO or TMA needs to be certified. Each individual MPO in the 3-county TMA were looked at individually, but their certification is for the group of 3 as a whole. We had 3 noteworthy practices and 3 corrective actions, but Teresa can go through the formal presentation for us.
All right. Yeah, Teresa, if you want to come on up to the podium, if that works for you there. Thank you. Madam Clerk, we need her name and address and all of that. Yeah, could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Teresa Parker, Federal Highway Administration.
Right, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm here today to present to you the findings for the 2017 Tampa Bay CERT Review Summary of Findings. The site visit was held March the 27th through the 28th. The review team consisted of myself, Leanne Jacobs, Carrie Shepard, Tamika Macon, Paris Orr, Joseph Hoffman. The MPO received 3 noteworthy practice, 3 corrective actions, and 6 recommendations. The report was signed on August the 31st of 2017. The MPO are being commended for an excellent job for the development and linking safety performance measures in their long-range transportation plan, as well as a congestion management process. The MPO also are being recommended and did an excellent job with the coordination efforts to obtain better representation for undeserved groups. The MPO also does an excellent job leveraging resources as in TMA. The first corrective action has to do with transit-related projects. Transit-related projects were not included in the annual listing of obligated projects. An annual list of obligated projects for transit must be completed by December 31st of 2017, making it available in a manner that are consistent with the MPO's public participation process for the TIP. The second corrective action has to do with the TIP. No information is provided in the TIP as to whether project costs are presented in year of expenditure dollars. The MPO needs to verify that the TIP funding amounts are shown in YOE and amend the TIP to document the use of YOE. To meet this requirement, the TIP must be changed by November 30th of 2017. And the third corrective action has to do with fiscal constraint within the Transportation Improvement Program. There is no discussion of revenues available or funding estimates with which to compare revenues, expenditures by year. The MPO must also amend the TIP by November 30th of 2017 to provide a clear demonstration of fiscal constraint by year. The MPO has been working and are on the right track with getting both of the TIP corrective actions taken care of. We've been working diligently with the MPO team, and they are on the right track. And I do know that they are also working on the transit with our contact, which is Elizabeth Paris. So they are still working on that as well, and I'm certain that this will be taken care of. A couple of recommendations has to do with the COOP update, as well as the Unified Planning Work Program as far as current updates, ensuring that the Public Participation Plan website updates are taken care of, and also to clarify or distinguish between the process to determine public meeting versus public hearing. Federal Highway does not require a public hearing. However, the states may do so otherwise. And also updates as far as the Title VI and related requirements, and the posting of supporting documents to the long-range transportation plan documents. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Are there questions for Ms. Parker here today?
One quick
Commissioner
question.
Starkey?
Did you say you do this every 5 years?
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years? Did we have any findings 4 years ago?
Yes, one corrective action, and then there was recommendations.
So we did all this 4 years ago, but we didn't do this in the last 4 years, these corrective actions that need to be taken?
Well, they changed. So, I mean, every 4 years, there is a certain review for the process to determine if the MPO are doing what they are required to do. So I wasn't here back in 2013, but there was a cert review that took place at that time as well. So there was one corrective action back then that had to do with public participation and measures of effectiveness, and they're working on that diligently on that. So they're doing well on that part. And then there were recommendations. So if you pull up the 2013 report, it will show you all the information that took place at that time.
And our funding is tied to that, so obviously there's a huge incentive to make sure we do this in a timely fashion so it doesn't affect our funding.
Okay,
correct?
that's all my questions.
All right, there's information only, correct? Are there additional questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Next item is the bifurcation to Boulevard for Tampa's future with I-275. Mr. Casper.
This is a presentation that was given to, I believe, Hillsborough County, or Hillsborough MPO, and FDOT and Hillsborough has desired that all the three in the TMA get it. So.
All right. Good morning. My name
have
is
your- thank you.
Josh Frank. I'm a resident of Hillsborough County, but I'm a native of St. Petersburg. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did and why I did it before I get into some of the details of the presentation, assuming this is the clicker. So I'm an urban designer. I have a master's degree in architecture and a master's degree in urban design from the University of South Florida. And I spent about 6 to 8 months of my time as a graduate researcher there, working with FDOT on the TBX community engagement process. What that means is I was one of the few sitting at the table with the community, drawing, sketching, talking about their concerns, what they like about their neighborhood, what they don't like about their neighborhood, to really give the project proper input on how it can make their lives better. So after that process, I then spent the next year working on my thesis for Master's of Urban and Community Design on actually implementing what the community and what I heard the community tell me they wanted to see. And so I didn't start out with a boulevard. I actually took the information I had from the community, and the end result ended up being what you're about to see. So what's important to remember is that as an urban designer, I actually design the projects you approve. We're working right now, the firm I work at, we're working on a cycle track right now. These are the type of things that come up quite frequently from MPO hearings. And so TIP projects are something I know quite a bit about. So going through this process, let's see which button here. There we go. I start out with an image from 1940. This is downtown Tampa, and what I consider to be our peak urban form. And I know this is Pasco County, and I'll talk a little bit about the regionality of this project in a little bit. But I always start off showing this because this is what we looked like before the interstate was built. And you can see that this is extremely dense. It's extremely connected. There are no physical identifiable boundaries between neighborhoods. So all of our urban core was essentially like this before the interstate was built. And then today, we have I-275, which connects up here at 75, for about 11 miles. And it spans every transect, from rural to urban, all the way to downtown Tampa. Now, what makes this interesting for the conversation is, from my studies and my perspective and what I've heard from the community, is that I-275 is actually expendable, and it's expendable for a lot of reasons. Primarily is, number one, it's not regional. So if we look at the traffic figures on I-275, we actually see that about 30 to 35% of people who use it are coming from Pasco County, North Hillsborough. In fact, 9 out of every 10 cars that turn a key in Hillsborough County stay in Hillsborough County. So a lot of the traffic on 275, in fact, the vast majority, is local. It's people getting on at Hillsborough, getting off at Bush. 3 or 4 exits, USF to downtown. Not necessarily the airport. In converse to that, I-75 is extremely regional. So is I-4, 275 west of downtown over the Howard Franklin Bridge is regional. This segment from USF to downtown is not. The other aspect that shows this is that these are the exit numbers. So you see the vast difference in our 4 university exits. Fowler, Fetcher, Bush, Bears, everybody's coming from downtown and the neighborhoods between downtown and USF to USF and back. There's not a lot of traffic actually going north of Bears. What else we know about I-275 is that it bisects communities. So between USF and downtown, there's really only about 10 or 11 exits for people to walk from one side to the other. If you live on the west side of 275 and your neighbor across the interstate is only a 5-minute walk in physical distance, it's going to potentially take you 30 to 45 minutes to walk from one side to the other. By definition, that's not walkable, and so people are going to choose to drive that short distance instead. I-275 and interstates in general lower property values, especially residential property values. In fact, for every decibel over 55, which is the standard background level, you lose about $1,400 worth of property value. So that area in the middle where the interstate is bright pink. You're at about 80 decibels. That means you're losing $30,000 to $40,000 off the property of your house instantly. Times that by 11 miles. It's a significant impact to both property value and tax revenue for the city. So again, these are really Hillsborough focused, but what I'm going to get to here is talking about the alternative and the hierarchy for what I'm proposing and talking about. So for me, designing for the 65% is what the alternative should be, especially when you consider this project is Tampa Bay Next. TBX has been talked about for $6–7 billion. We should be designing for the 65%. So part one of that is tearing it down and reallocating that land for better use. So for example, this is without precedence, or not without precedence. The Embarcadero Freeway in San Francisco was originally a double-decker, collapsed in part during the earthquake in the early 80s, and was replaced with an at-grade boulevard with transit. Now it's pretty much one of the most successful parts of San Francisco. In fact, property values have gone up, housing numbers have gone up 51%, jobs 23%, and in Milwaukee, where they've actually done this as well, land value went up 180% relative to the rest of the city around that interstate. Part two is to reintegrate, and what I mean by that is reusing that right-of-way in a smarter and more efficient way. So essentially, I get a lot of comments about, removing the interstate sounds crazy, but I'm removing 6 lanes of traffic with 6 lanes of traffic. That's what I'm replacing it with. The only addition is a median corridor for transit that's at grade. Essentially, it could be light rail. In the future, it could be elevated express lanes, similar to the Selman Expressway. For those 35% who are still regional, it's not necessarily apples to apples, but you have to think about using that land for the best method possible. So for example, in some areas in Hillsborough County, you have a certain amount of right-of-way here. I think this is about 140 feet, where with that amount of land, you can do so much more. And in fact, other areas closer to downtown where the exits are, you have enough land to develop. In fact, 36 new acres would be brought back to the property tax rolls for Hillsborough County. Now, when you consider transit-oriented development and the fact that those properties are actually depressed because of the interstate, we're bringing them up to market value and then potentially above with transit. That's in addition to the neighborhood connectivity, which dramatically increases when you introduce new cross streets, new intersections. So for example, this is taken at Osborne in Seminole Heights. There's one exit currently today, but in this configuration you can see that it's not unimaginable for somebody to be able to walk from one side to the other. And as far as traffic is concerned, you have a lot of right-in, right-outs. All around the country, there are all kinds of alternatives for local streets, bike and ped being on the inside as opposed to being on the road itself, and then mitigating turning issues, intersection design. All of these things are very progressive in my field that are being done on a daily basis, but don't really get considered when people try and think about what the interstate could be in terms of being at grade. So for example, this is a Michigan left where you actually go beyond the intersection and hang a left through a U-turn. very successful in a lot of places. So the other aspect, and this is where I start to talk about Pasco County, is that this is actually the only solution, I believe, that is comprehensive. Tampa Bay Next, TBX, has always looked at a very finite scope. There's a very dashed blue line on the drawings that says this is where the study ends. And so there's really no consideration into how it affects our other major avenues or corridors. And so to me, what I looked at was how does this work as a system? And so thinking about both transit, the 6 lanes of vehicular boulevard, how can we try and achieve a balance between all the needs, both regional and local? And so, looking at something like the Champs-Élysées and Paris, which serves about 84,000 cars a day and looks like this, that's more than Dale Mabry Highway. This doesn't look like Dale Mabry Highway, but you can imagine that the potential of that land in this roadway is limitless. This is actually 10 lanes. Dale Mabry's is, I think, 8 in places.
Where'd you say that was?
This is Paris.
That's Paris.
Yeah. Not quite exact in terms of being able to replicate the scale and the density and the history and the character, but in terms of traffic numbers, you'd be really surprised to see how much capacity some of these roadways carry. In terms of regional commuter rail, I think we're comparable to something like Baltimore and DC. Similarly sprawled, some similar satellite communities, and they average about 34,000 people a week riding their commuter rail, with a little bit less population than us, actually. So I think that's a number we should try and achieve. Metro Rail in Houston. Houston's one of the most sprawled cities in the country. In fact, it has no zoning. They have 60,000 and a half people riding their streetcar and their light rail every day. Our streetcar in Tampa has 600. So there's a potential for growth. If we were to just meet Charlotte's numbers, right, the Charlotte numbers, they're pretty similar to us. If we could just meet that, that's a significant amount of people coming off the road. So we're tackling that 65% and that 35% in chunks instead of a big project to try and assume that's going to take a certain percentage away. So this is the part that's really important for Pasco County, is maximizing our existing interstates. So one of the biggest reasons 275 fails on a daily basis is because of the interchange. Sorry, I hit the button on accident. If you remove that knot, the rest of the interstate functions extremely efficiently. And so, in fact, if you were to use I-75 coming from Pasco County instead of 275, Google tells me the difference is 3 minutes at 9 o'clock in the morning and 5 minutes at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So the conversation isn't how do we make 275 better and expand it in an area where it's extremely impactful, but the conversation should be how do we make 75 10 minutes faster than 275. In addition to that, we also have the Veterans Expressway. How can we make the Veterans Expressway faster than 275? And if we can accomplish both of those things, I think there's a scenario where all parties involved see a winning solution. In addition to that, I-75 is your regional spine. It's not Hillsborough County's. In fact, I'd say the Veterans is probably a little more accessible from downtown Tampa. But the fact of the matter is that including other elements like freight, access to the port, the rail yards, East Tampa, all the industry that's out there for Pasco County is extremely critical and almost has no relationship to 275. So if you were to think of I-75 as your primary regional spine, in fact, it's been identified as such in a couple studies, that, and along with 54 and 56, you could really start to see a true regional system that frankly has no need for I-275. So part 3 of this is smart growth, and I think this is something that's extremely important for you in Pasco as well as us in Hillsborough, is that in order to, by all accounts, we're going to grow by a lot of people, right? By 2050, the population numbers are going to be extreme. So how do we accommodate that? Do we either expand indefinitely? Will we need to go through an interstate expansion again in another 20 years? Or do we want to actually have an attempt to attract that development to be transit-friendly and transit-ready and incentivize developers to actually build along transit so that those people don't have to drive? The other side of that is that it allows rural communities and other communities in Pasco County, which are seeing exponential growth right now, to stay the way they are. It's hard to imagine, but areas like Wesley Chapel and Newport Richey are going to be vastly different in 50 years than they are today. And so you want to be able to, as an MPO board and as citizens, to do that in a way that allows for better traffic, better connectivity, the BPAC, impacts of bike and ped. And so you really want us to sort of use that momentum to put the development where you would like it to succeed the best. And so I show an image like this. This is the induced demand of the interstate, right? These are parallel roads, Nebraska and Florida. So this is an example of showing, okay, how can we impact that number without impacting some of the others? The other elements of projects like this is the sort of tangent impacts, right? Tampa's and Hillsborough County's urban tree canopy, and I know Pasco's is just as great, saves the city a ton of money on an annual basis. In fact, this says it's about, I think it says $2 million. I know it's more than that. This is an outdated study, but the last time it was looked at in terms of heating and cooling costs, in terms of stormwater management, these are all things that the other aspects of reimagining that 275 corridor can start to take chunks out of. So as urban designers, we try and solve as many problems as we can with one solution. So for example, if you're rethinking this corridor with 275, it gives you an opportunity to put new stormwater infrastructure underneath the interstate or underneath the boulevard and vault some stormwater and actually take capacity off of the existing infrastructure. Talk about utilities. When we rethink of 275 and I-75 as sort of a blank slate, what we can do is say, okay, developer, we're going to take the top 25% of your cost off your plate by putting in a new stormwater main, a new hookup to Google Fiber, or the highest speed internet to connect USF and downtown, so that the developer is then incentivized to come and build and where you would like them to build. The last part is the economic development, which is probably the largest portion of this potential in this corridor, is because the way I looked at it is essentially 18 new transit stops. And if you've ever been to a major city like Washington, D.C., or Boston and seen the density and activity around a transit station, that is exactly what we are missing. We don't have that. And so I think in conjunction with the amount of land gained as well as the incentivized for development, you could potentially see that in another 40, 50 years. So the last couple slides are a little bit of examples of some of the work that I did beyond the sort of big thinking, big concept, and that's actually looking at station areas. And so one of the areas I looked at is where 275 meets the CSX rail corridor just north of USF. To me, that's the gateway to Pasco County. And if you had commuter rail mixed with light rail running up the boulevard, this is your park and ride facility. So those 35%, the smaller percentage of that that's coming from Pasco, can take 275, park and ride from here to downtown Tampa and be there in 8, 10, 12, 15 minutes. And if it's commuter rail, you can get to the airport in 18, 20 minutes instead of the 40, 50 minutes it takes you today. So to me, this is the sort of comprehensive part of the project that looks at how can we I think it was Ed McKinney with DOT who said something like, there is no silver bullet, but there might be silver buckshot. That's sort of the approach that I'm taking, is that you can take a small chunk out of a lot of different things and have a lot more better quality of life than simple interstate expansion. So I leave this presentation with this last image because this is essentially the footprint of the original interstate in Tampa. You can see an elementary school in the foreground that's no longer around. It was torn down. And just the swath of land that has, I think, unlimited potential for us in this process. And I know Stephen is going to talk a little bit about the Tampa Bay Next process, so he will inform you a little bit on that. But this is an alternative being studied for the 275 corridor. After my work and sweat and tears, it is now officially listed as one of the alternatives being studied. And so I'm hopeful that there's a receptive audience to it. So again, thank you for your time, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. The question, we have a couple. Mayor Massey.
How did you extract the information of what the people needed?
Yeah, so During the first round of community engagement for Tampa Bay Next, or TBX at the time, there was a series of over 20 workshops that I was one of lead facilitators for USF. So I was tasked with sitting down with community members 20 to 30 times, 4 or 8 people at a table, talking to them about what impacts they have. And these were the immediate neighborhoods around the interstate corridor. And so that is where the majority of my feedback came from, was during that process. It was a very lengthy process.
And how did you get those citizens to the table?
Yeah, so they came to the table as part of the
They
advertised.
came on their own,
Yep,
or?
they came on their own. It was part of the community engagement process. So the events were solicited, they were announced in the newspaper, and also engaged with flyers, that sort of thing, and so there was a website. And basically, they were open to the public, so whoever wanted to come and talk about their concerns with the project was more than welcome to. It's something that we did quite frequently and was very rewarding.
My experience has been that people who want to come are about, they're probably speaking for 5% of the people. I didn't know if you had an outreach.
Yeah.
Get to the people that don't.
That's a common concern. And so one of the things that I've done since that process is actually I've been invited to present to neighborhood groups, neighborhood associations, other events. I've done that at least a dozen times now. And the audience is wide-ranging. People who think I'm crazy, people who think I'm brilliant. And either way, you know, I think at the end, they come with a preconceived notion of what they're going to see. And I think there's a common ground for all of us. So part of this process for me has been reaching out to people who I disagree with and seeing why and talking about how I can sort of listen to what their concerns are. And this isn't a perfectly baked cake,
Right.
by all accounts. It's still going through the process with FDOT and all their engineers and all the hoops they have to jump through for it. But as a conversation starter, that's really what I was trying to achieve. So.
Thank you, Councilman Starkey.
I just want to commend you on an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Very, very well done. I wish you luck, and I'd love to pick your brain on ideas for the 54, 56 corridor.
Absolutely, I'd love to. You know, this it's funny, every time I make this presentation, somebody says, I have a corridor in mind that'd be just perfect for this. And my answer is always, that's perfect. You know, it's not, what I'm talking about isn't necessarily tied to 275 specifically, but could be applied, I think, in any scenario, so.
Commissioner Mariano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very interesting proposition, but I really have concerns as far as what's going to happen with all those people that are going to try to get to the city. You made mention of certain transit lines, but I never heard you even talk about US 41.
Yeah.
I never heard you talk about the CSX line coming down.
Yeah.
Why isn't that in your presentation?
They are. This is an abbreviated version of the presentation. It's very long and verbose otherwise. But no, the commuter rail corridor with CSX is extremely important. In fact, I used it as part of my study to look at these transit areas. So the USF station is where the Boulevard, Light Rail, and CSX all meet. As far as 41, that's extremely important as well. I think we've got a lot of north-south corridors and a lot of connections to Pasco County that are underutilized from Hillsborough County. And so I would love to see all of them made better, frankly.
I mean, one of the biggest struggles we have is the 54 corridors at US 41. Go down further, 75, you've got that as well. If there's a way to get people down to Hillsborough, and that, again, that 41, you talked about both sides of it, but you didn't even mention, that concerns me, because when you talk about a park and ride, there's capacities at 52, up in Hernando County, another 170,000 population that making that same trip. And let's face it, if we're going to go downtown, I think everyone would love to just be able to park and ride if they could get all the way down there.
Yeah, I don't think there's, and don't confuse the fact that I've studied one park and ride station, that there aren't any others. I think as part of a system, the CSX corridor offers a ton of potential for 5, 6 stations, all the way up to Hernando County. And so part of that is that I think that corridor offers a lot of potential, but that's going to take a lot of time and federal approval, that sort of thing. But I think it's worth looking into. And then the other side of that is I think I-75 is underutilized, so is the VET. In fact, I got up from my desk. I think so.
You're crazy.
No,
You're crazy.
I got up from my desk this
No.
morning at 9:40 and got here in less than an hour.
That's going that way. You try going the other way, and tell me what you think.
Yeah,
You're
well, I think
crazy.
we can make that better. I think we can.
You know, right now with all the toll lanes and all the express toll lanes, they're wasting lanes.
Yeah.
And charging more tolls.
Yeah.
For higher things. Those orange markers, how much money we blew on that, I have no idea.
Yeah, I am far from pro toll or pro express lanes. I am pro moving people in the most efficient way possible. So I leave the method to maybe some of the more informed people at DOT. But personally, I agree with you. I think that I don't think we can expand forever. I think there has to be a longer-term solution. And so some of the things that I've looked at specifically in terms of land use and zoning and density requirements, parking minimums, those sorts of things allow for you to actually incentivize people to stop driving. And so one of the DOT engineers made a comment about, if you just keep adding more water to the balloon and it gets wide, and then if you squeeze the water balloon, the water goes to the other side. What I'm talking about isn't squeezing the water balloon. I'm talking about removing the water. How do you get the balloon to a decent size so that we deal with what we have in a better way? And so to me, that is transit, that's density, that's incentivizing development, like we're going to have in Channelside, where there's less parking than what you would find normally. And it would also mean having a robust, comprehensive transit solution. So CSX, light rail, expanding the streetcar, having bus rapid transit, all these other components that give everybody alternatives so that they don't have to all pile into the same one or two choices. So to me, that's a real solution and not an expansion or a Band-Aid. And so that's sort of the impetus of what I was studying.
I don't know about the other areas, but it seems to me like Charlotte and Mecklenburg, studying that area there, when they built their first rail line, they took the old industrial line, made it a passenger rail. When they went through that whole process, they actually took a look at the numbers along the corridor. And for the $1.2 billion of investment, they're now generating $236 million a year in taxes. They just spent another 1.4 to go connect to a Duke and UNC. The growth, the density around that whole area is booming.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think Pinellas County had it brilliant when they started going forward.
Yep.
About saying, we're going to try to do this for redevelopment.
Yeah.
That rail line, it's fixed. It's not the whims of government entities after that point, whether they run the bus or not run the bus, or run the transit or not run the transit. You put it in place and you're going to get some investment up and down.
I completely agree with you, yes. And that's what I've studied.
I just don't see that you spend all the money tearing down 275 until you put that other infrastructure in place. So I think your time is early. It could work down the road.
Sure.
But until you run that line, and to me, use your existing infrastructure a lot cheaper that way, running from all the way down to Hernando to Tampa, from USF all the way down to St. Pete, and go put another rail coming across the bridges.
Yeah, you're not going to get an argument.
Make a nice key and get everybody there.
You won't get an argument from me. Transit first, I think, is a great policy to have, and then you go from there.
In the interest of time, and I don't mean to be rude, but I'd like to, I'm sure we could.
No
It's
problem.
very interesting. I think it does have a lot of applications, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this, but I know we have a lot of other items we need to get to before we start losing our bodies up here, because I know some have to leave. So are there additional questions or quick comments?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It was very interesting. Next item is item C, the FDOT tentative work plan development.
And this is just an information item. You will get a formal presentation next month. It shows the projects that are getting funded in the next 5th year of FDOT's work program. We don't have the dollars yet. They're working on getting those to us because there's match requirements for them. So the first attachment, page 90, shows the table from FDOT, and then we superimpose that with the second attachment that shows it relative to your adopted list of priority projects. Again, you'll get a formal presentation next month, but this was just giving an early heads up on the projects. Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Casper?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
And Craig, I made mention of this, so maybe this is the right spot to bring it up or not, but, we talk about how we're spending money, and if we look at where the money's been flowing, and there's only so much you can do on the west side, I get that. But when I get projects such as the Zimmerman, such as the Ranch Road, such as the
underpass of Port Ritchie for US 9 to be a sidewalk under there. What are we going to do to get those projects into these plans? Because I haven't seen them anywhere, and they're supposed to come up in conversation. There's nothing in print anywhere, I don't think.
That US 19 project, you bring it up, Manny, please. That is a project that was moved into our priority list. I think it was put in at number 19.
13.
13, it was it was initially listed at 19, you moved it up to 13, and there wasn't enough money to get that far down the list to fund it. So, but that is a project that would be eligible for like the TA funds. It's eligible for a couple of categories of funds, and so we can look at applying for that. There's a bridge section that goes under the bridge. That's what it looks like. And that's about $1.5 million for that. And then the connectors on both sides are another cost. So we can, that's definitely a project that it's a priority of the region, so that's a project that we would apply for TA funds with, as an example. We just not sure where we are in FDOT's process, but that is something that we would do then.
Commissioner Mariano, if this is number 13, DOT just goes down the list and they fund as much as they can. I mean, I would suggest maybe if the board will move it up somehow. I mean, we discussed it in previous
I thought we
meeting.
had discussed it.
They moved up
yeah.
to number 13.
Well, I was thinking maybe,
Mayor Masad?
excuse me. Oh, okay, thank you. I was thinking maybe if you can't take Moses to the mountain, you bring the mountain to Moses. So if they can only fund the top of this, then can we move that project into the funding range?
It is your pleasure of what your list of priority projects is. So it would be just displacing one of the other priority projects.
Okay. Is anybody familiar with these? I'm not familiar with these projects, but can't imagine they would have the magnitude of the connecting two cities.
Did you bring the list up?
Yeah, the
for us,
list up,
priority
because I
projects?
have it on paper, but it's not on, sorry.
Yeah, if memory serves me right, if I may, I agree with Commissioner Mariano. We had this discussion about the economic impact it would have with West Pasco County, and this is, I think we compared this to basically our Johns Pass, the Port Ritchie waterfront. And I thought we didn't give it a number, but I thought everyone up here had kind of agreed it was something that we should look at as a priority to try to spur economic redevelopment in West Pasco.
Yep, and the decision the board made at that time was to move it from 19 to 13.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so we did move it.
So we moved it up, but still way down the
But
line.
it's not, it went from 19 to 13 is what you're
But
saying.
originally, I believe we moved it to 5 at this meeting. I don't know.
No, because then I think we did have a further discussion. There was a lot of talk about those projects that had been in the queue for quite a while. And there was discussion about moving one, displaced another, and I think there was different board members that were, that's what I remember a couple of months ago, because I know we haven't met. But so it was moved once. You're bringing something back next month, you're saying that is more, got some further
Yeah,
information?
next
or-
month will be the formal presentation from FDOT.
Okay,
about
so
it.
there was a request or talk about moving again, but it was already moved once, so are there,
Was there no way to move them twice? Rule against that?
well, and what has been said to us is we can do what we want. I know there was a conversation, we did move it once, and I think when we tried to move it again, I think some different board members did have, remember, when you move something again, you're moving somebody else's project to a different space on the table. So
Go to 8,
That's
go to the
it.
next page, 8, number 8, and down, please. 1 through 7.
this is
There
the
you go.
Carnarton Boulevard?
That's what we're looking at. Yeah, okay.
Ridge Road Extension, it's number 8.
And what is the comment, sir?
What is the next one?
The comments on number 8 are the right-of-way is funded in,
Stay on the
But
number 8.
Commissioner, these are the roadway priorities. They're not.
Where'd you put back on the one that we were working on?
Yeah, I think this is the one.
But that's an old one
This is the
there, okay.
priority list.
There you
Actually, we were told to bring this over.
Okay. That's a sidewalk.
go. Those are sidewalks.
There we go.
That's it.
That one, you want the sidewalks? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could,
Sure.
if I remember correctly, and I know, thank you, Craig, for emailing the stuff to us, but our questions last time were how are the projects ranked? You know, I know we just got it last night, so we all probably need to look at it, but, you know, it is looking at, and the introduction to multi-criteria analysis is actually how we're doing it now, right?
No, that's not, that's how I would propose to do it.
How are we doing it? I kind of wanted to see how we're doing it now. I thought it was just a,
This is basically the criteria that was used. It's been used for several years.
Okay.
That the priority list is based on.
And, yeah, what you're referring to, I know there was an email last night with several documents and
Yeah.
rationale and all of that, so I'm not sure if many of us had a chance to review
Yeah,
it.
we can't, I can't get no offense, an email the night before a
Yeah.
meeting. I have a pretty busy schedule and expect to have that implemented in my thoughts for the meeting the
Right,
next
to be
morning,
able to
so
digest
it's,
it, so it's hard to do that.
and I would
The
be
multi-criteria I sent in July, so.
Commissioner Mariano, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just like, we're having a meeting the night before we're gonna get this? I mean, really? That's ridiculous. We asked for this for 2 months ago to get this, and now we're getting it. If I could go on?
Sir?
If you would shift to the slide to the other way,
Yeah, cut off, we can't.
for the projects.
So we can see the actual items. There you
I
go.
want to say this project here, the one we're talking about, the underpass, that was a project that was on the list 13 years ago. Zimmerman and Ranch Road were on that list, probably about the same rankings they're at 12 years, 13 years ago. Neither one of those are moving, they're all on the west side. And I'm going to tell you, when I look at the projects we submitted just today, between overpass, between diverging diming, et cetera, it's where the growth is, we need to go fix those things. There's not many improvements you can do on the west side, but these are things that need to get moved up. The city of Port Richey's done a great job for years trying to get dredging done. They've now got a DMA site. They're going to make some major improvements. And as Councilman Stark and I, we took a ride in the boat parade one year and going, why are these two cities separated? It's a great connector, and it's a great time to start this John's Pass thinking. The city's doing great things with the Hacienda and other things with the downtown park they got. We need to make this happen. This needs to happen fast. And I'm going to say, with everything that's on here, I think it's critical we move it up. The tax base from gas tax goes around this whole county. Whether the growth is there or not, it's spent everywhere. It needs to, we need to get some more influence over here. All your major projects that were just adjusted in the TPA, they're all from the west side, the east side. We need to go fix these projects that we can go do to help the west side. We got a chance for revitalization. We have dredging projects coming up. I think it's time that we make a strong move to make the thing up. The west side's got to stand up and get some benefit for all the taxes we're paying.
I agree. I mean, I can see just little changes we've made in our small city have just had a tremendous impact on economic development. We have millions and millions of investment dollars coming in. We have people contacting our economic development director on a daily basis on what's going on with the city. There's a lot of buzz. There's a great article on Frank Starkey and what he's bringing to the city of Newport Richey. Something as small as a golf cart ordinance, which is just it sounds silly, but you drive around downtown Newport Richey and there's golf carts everywhere and people love it. It's creating a hometown atmosphere that's attracting people who want to live in our city and around our city. However, you can't connect to the Port Richey waterfront because you can't take a golf cart across the US 19 bridge. You build an underpass, there's a parcel of land for sale just on the east side of the bridge, and it'd be great if we could gobble that up. Tie it into this underpass going over the bridge, have a little golf cart parking area. People would drive their golf carts from downtown Newport Richey and the surrounding neighborhoods to the 19 bridge, get out, walk underneath, and go spend their money at the Port Richey waterfront, and vice versa. People in Port Richey that live on the water and are also allowed to use golf carts could park their golf carts, walk under the bridge, and hop in with a friend and get a ride to downtown Newport Richey for events we have in Sims Park. It's just, I understand all these prioritized projects are important, but I just see this having a tremendous impact on the economic development of these two municipalities and West Pasco as a whole. And not to sound like a broken record, and I'm not trying to fight east versus west by any means. I know all the county commissioners up here are very, very concerned with the county as a whole. But I will tell you that if you go out and speak to people, the residents of West Pasco County and the people that are wanting to see redevelopment, they feel neglected. And I think this would be a perfect opportunity to say, hey, we hear you, we're going to help you out, and I think we should move it up.
And there,
So with that, I know Mayor Massard had made we do have, it's the pleasure of the board to reorganize, re-rank. So I guess if you wanted to do that at this time, a motion could be made or to change that ranking and give it back to board to bring it, give it back to staff to bring it back to the next meeting.
quickly.
Mayor Massard.
I just would like to ask this council, is there anything above this project that would have the same ability to connect cities, and economic impact, and of course, West Side? Is there anything, I'm not familiar with these, but I mean, US 41 to Bambi Circle, I don't know I don't know what the impacts of these that are above it are, but I don't think they could possibly be in the ballpark with this River Gulf project.
Commissioner Wells?
Yeah, no, I don't believe there is. That's a good point. And I don't disagree with you, but let me ask you, we're waiting to find out exactly what we're going to be able to get funded, correct? You're talking about letting us know
Next
by
month,
next
there'll be
meeting.
the
Do we think
presentation
it's going to
from
make
FDOT.
it down to 13? I mean, I'm assuming this project's going to be an expensive project. It is needed, but I'd kind of, do we have an estimate on how far down we're going to make it?
I don't right now, so.
We're going to make it
Only 4 projects. Oh, well, that doesn't do a whole
So
lot.
how much money are we talking about for the sidewalk project?
Chairman.
Yeah, I think Mr. Benson wanted to
If
chime
I can
in.
offer something, the projects that we're presenting to you next month were based upon the prior cycle. So those projects had applications, complete applications that were submitted on March 31st of this year.
Yep.
So if you change this list, it's for the next cycle. The list that we're using now, it was in the tip that you all have already adopted that was back in July. There's a whole process that goes into getting these ready to be submitted so that we can fund them and send them up to the legislature.
Right, so re-ranking now will have an impact, but not for
Yes, ma'am.
2 cycles, what I'm hearing. Commissioner Moore?
So if you're saying you think it's only be only the top 4 that would be funded, so look at your top 4, and 3 of them are in West Pasco. One of them's in East Pasco. So which one of those in West Pasco are you willing to remove? Because Zephyr Hills.
Who's not here today, oh, but we have
Oh, no,
Commissioner
the
Oakley.
Zephyr-
Yeah,
You
Commissioner.
know, the Zephyr
yeah,
Hills,
yeah.
and that's in the, more the, downtown area there in Zephyr Hills. So which one are you willing to move? Ridge Road, Congress, or Old 54, right here at Little Road and 52? You got to pick one of those 3.
Madam Chair?
You can't bump Zephyr Hills.
Commissioner Wells?
I can tell you that, both Ridge Road and Congress are in my district. Ridge Road, it's a little section. I don't think it's going to be a ton of money. We're talking about, it's literally, I don't know how many, Deborah, I don't know if you have the information, but it's life and death for these kids riding their bikes down the side of Ridge Road because there is no sidewalk. And then Congress, I've seen disabled folks there's no sidewalk on Congress and it's very tight. But are you going to go over that?
Deborah?
So I think we need to come back to you with a bigger presentation because I have the first 2 priorities, Ridge Road and Congress, fully funded in the capital plan.
Gotcha.
And there's several of these projects that are going to be put in for Safe Routes to Schools applications, and that includes Zimmerman and Ranch. So I think it will be helpful to bring this back to you and to kind of explain to you what's really happening. Some of these are being funded. 20th Street sidewalk, we're doing a LAP agreement. That one is funded. So there's the ranking, and then we can explain to you what's actually happening on the ground.
We should wait till.
What is
Yeah,
really happening.
and that's what she's.
Because I was running these numbers, and based on what's really happening, your project moves up to number 8.
Is number 4 funded?
Yes.
So we
that
can't
one is
touch the
funded.
top 4.
So we need to come back to you
Yeah.
and show,
Why don't we
show you the
wait?
ranking, but then show you what's really happening.
So
So
we
yours is already going to move up based on what I'm looking at.
How many decades does that mean if we go 4 at a time? When would it happen?
Well, I will say that for the project list, we try to fund at least 2 sidewalks with county funds each year.
So why don't we do this? You said, what I'm hearing, based on what you know right now with the funding of these and the first 4, you're
What's
going to
will
come back
happen?
with something and some more information the next meeting, so that when we make a decision or readjust these rankings, at that time, we'll be in a better position, because we'll have,
Yeah,
is that,
let me just one more thing.
Yes,
And-
Commissioner
and-
Moore.
And I get it, I'm not in disagreement
Yeah.
with you guys at all. That's why we're gonna have to really dig into this, though, because, you look at number 8 now, Boyette Road, Van Dyne Road to Wesley Chapel District Park. You've been out there, it's actually your district, but I'm out there all the time, on almost a daily basis. There's no sidewalk on that road for kids to get to the park.
Yep.
I mean, bad things happen there, so safety
Busy park.
first, right? I mean, that's what you have to think about. You have a school there, you have a high school, you have an elementary school and a middle school, and then you have a district park. You can't take, and this sidewalk they've been waiting on that for a long, long time. So what do you move? I mean,
Well, I
you know,
think we need to
that's-
come back and
Well, I'm with you. I
present
just
you a
mean,
real
it's-
scenario, like Majestic, that's funded, that's going to construction.
Thank you
So
very
we
much,
have
Board of
to,
Commissioners.
so we have to talk in the context of really what's happening.
Yeah.
We've got about 4 projects we're going to be submitting for Safe Routes to Schools. One of them is Ranch, one of them is Zimmerman. So the ranking is important, because this is what I look at when I start to pull projects into the capital plan. So it's really important to have the ranking. So our goal is to fund 2 of these a year with local funds. So I use the ranking to start pulling projects off a list. But then we also need to talk to you about really what's happening.
And when will you?
Where we've got the funding, what projects are happening in the capital plan. So it will change the ranking, and the bridge is going to be moving up.
And when will you know about the Safe Route to Schools? What projects?
Well, we've had
qualify for that?
conversation actually this week. So we're going to be getting back with DOT, and I'm working with traffic operations on that. So my goal is to have at least 4 applications submitted by the end of November. So that's my goal. And that includes Ranch and Zimmerman. And there's 2 other projects. So we can come back and talk to you, about ranking, but also really what's happening.
And what's
What do we
funded
have in
and
the
what's-
program? What do we have funded? What's a lab project? We've got 2 lab projects that are coming up. One is the 20th Street, and then we have Sweet Bay Court to Cypress Elementary. We're actually bringing the lab agreements to you on the 24th. So those will go into design and construction. So we can give you that snapshot as well, so you see what's actually happening.
So are you all,
And what we're
Commissioner
doing.
Oakley?
I think that's better to, you bring it back to us
Yeah.
and look at it.
Yeah, so we can
where
talk
it
to you about
stands
what-
And funding, when it's gonna
Right.
be constructed.
Right.
Because that moves ahead of everything that's not funded or,
So we
fixing
have the
to move in that
list, which is
position.
really important,
Yeah.
because this is what I pull from, so I need this.
Right.
But then I can talk to you about the capital projects and what grants we're submitting and
Yeah, and I think
what's,
that's going to be
what's
helpful.
going
We'll
on.
have
So
a
you
much-
see the big
yeah,
picture,
yeah.
so you see
Yeah,
the
you
real.
see what's
and-
happening out there.
And
Yeah.
the goals.
Councilman
I
Starkey?
agree.
I agree. Commissioner Moore had a very good point. I'll agree with him once again, safety first. But I do appreciate the commissioners understanding the economic impact that this project could have. Thank you for being
Absolutely.
receptive to that
We
very much.
understand that.
And I think that we ran down some other questions that you had about funding opportunities. And I think that there are federal grants that you can apply for. So we had asked these questions of the economic development folks. So, and I don't think Craig was here at the time. So I'm going to circle back with him. So this is not the only funding opportunity that you have. There's also federal funds. So it's best to maximize your opportunities. So we can share that with you as well.
Okay,
Commissioner Moore? Wait, I think,
Excuse me. If we apply for other things, do they exclude, like if you get this, you are excluded from other project or other
It would be a
monies?
standalone. So if you submit it as a federal project, it's not, it's good that it's on this list, but there's other opportunities. There's other grant
and I
opportunities.
think that came up earlier, that we want to make
That
sure, and
did.
Commissioner Starkey's not here, but we want to make sure we're using up all those opportunities
Absolutely.
that are available
there
to
are
us, so we're
some-
not missing any.
Right,
I
and
think
there are some
Commissioner-
opportunities for.
Commissioner Moore had a question
Well,
as
since you're
well.
up there, and Commissioner Starkey left, so she left a couple questions here, so I guess I'll ask them for the record here.
Okay.
First question was, light at North Point? Do you know anything about the light at North Point?
Yes,
Signal, I should say. I hate saying light, but.
so I don't want to misspeak.
Commissioner,
But I know that
think
DOT, there was a design that was being signed off. I'll have to find out on the construction start.
Okay.
But I think
So it's moving forward?
It is moving forward.
Okay.
But we'll circle back with her and
Easy
DOT on the construction start date for that light. But yeah, that is moving forward.
Okay, cool,
That's going to
thanks.
happen.
All right. Access under Suncoast Parkway for connecting Suncoast Trail to Central Pasco, Orange Belt Trail. I guess,
Say the first part of that. What is
I'll
that?
slow down for you, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Access under Suncoast Parkway
Oh, that one,
for connecting the Suncoast Trail.
that one,
By Bexley, yeah.
that one.
Bexley. Anything going on with that?
So I think we need to circle back with Richard on this. And it's a bigger conversation, I think, with DOT, because I believe that had to come out when they put in the new ramps at Suncoast and 54. So we need to have a meeting with DOT
Okay.
to talk about that, to see how we can affect that. And maybe that's something we have to put on the list as well. And maybe there's some other funding opportunities for that.
Okay. And I have one for FDOT, but I'll wait.
Okay.
Commissioner Wells, I think you still have a question.
Just a statement, and I'm trying to be as positive as I can, but I've heard about the Harbors redevelopment plan since before I was elected. I keep hearing about the Harbors redevelopment plan. We're doing some things on the west side of the county and down US 19, and this would be something that would maybe come back to the board, and it might be a legal question. But I don't see, we talk about economic development, we talk about creating things, it's penny money. I think the voters, when they voted, I think they had a vision on I know I did, what I wanted to see on the west side. And I don't see why something like this with the connectivity with the cities, we couldn't use that money.
Ooh, that's a good
And I know
idea.
I hear, well, target industry, well, I think it's going to come back to our board, but this is an example of something we can get done quickly. The money's there. We need to look into it. Even if we can get some federal money after the fact, would be great. But and I know you can't answer right now.
So I did ask that question, and that is an excellent question, because you asked that. And maybe Melanie can come to the next meeting, but because I asked about economic development and tourism opportunities and these
it
things.
just
So
does
we
all
need to
that.
have it in a bigger conversation, but yes, so there were several things that you'd mentioned. You mentioned economic development, you mentioned tourism. I asked about federal grants. So I think as it relates to the harbors and this particular project, all the federal opportunities or state opportunities should be presented, and what is doable, and what you may be precluded from doing.
Well, like the mayor said, I don't want to be sitting here 4 years from now and we're still
Absolutely.
talking about it. We've got to get something done there.
Right.
Port Richey's got a lot of good things going on, New Port Richey.
Right.
Finally, and I'm not trying to be negative, but the county, I think we're all working together great, pretty darn good with the cities. We all understand, we want the same thing, we're all together. We have an opportunity here, and the money's there.
I
so.
agree.
Member Side, did you have another comment before I give it back to Commissioner
I
Moore?
just wanted to say, remember, we're also connecting a state park down ours, then around the bridge, we connect to Newport Richey, and maybe we can even do the golf carts as well on that same thing. It would be a huge thing for us. I certainly don't want to put any kids in jeopardy, but when you say you're going to bring it back, when is that?
When do we meet? When's the next meeting, November?
Well, I heard next meeting we were bringing, that's how this all started, unless it's
Right.
changed since that. I don't know.
Normally, we cancel 3 and then we have.
Yeah, no,
one.
we'll be, no, we'll be
No,
back
that
next
was
month.
next year. I
Yeah.
think you have a meeting in November.
We
We'll come
haven't,
back.
I know we're trying to move it along because I'm looking at the clock.
November.
I know, we are, but this is important A lot of people
November. Agreed.
are interested in this, and if we need to move some stuff to the next meeting on this, since they're just presentations, move them up to the
fine,
next
okay.
meeting, So what is the estimated cost on this project? Do we have a guesstimate? Give me a rough number.
I don't have an estimate.
Do we have something?
Several years back, Commissioner, maybe about 10 years
Okay.
ago, we did a study, just the overall West Pasco
Okay,
area.
okay.
And just the bridge alone was costed at $1.8 million.
Okay, so the bridge would be
Underpass.
the underpass would be $1.8 million?
Yeah.
That seems awfully high.
That's
I mean, that
engineering
seems
to
extraordinarily
go.
high for what the use would be, because it's pedestrian and golf carts.
I showed you the rendering of
Yeah,
it.
well, you don't need to do all that right now, so,
Like one.
again, so I know Chris is chomping at the bit to probably say something over there, but let me finish. and I want this to happen too, because it makes obviously economic sense for the entire county. So to Commissioner Wells's point, and you may be able to answer this in a second, we talk about economic development, we have the penny money, and, but infrastructure for economic development should be, I would think, allowed in the penny money. So if there's, it doesn't always have to be incentives for companies. When you think about it, this would be incentive for multiple businesses.
Yep.
Right? So infrastructure that's going to be here for the long term and assist business after business after business, I would think that's something we could do. And we know we have funds available in our Economic Development Trust Fund. Right?
This is economic development, not my area necessarily, but yes, that we have pretty broad flexibility in how we can use the penny money. And David's over here and knows the rules specifically. It comes down to a question of where do you want to go and what are your priorities and what you spend it on.
Well, I know where we want to go, but I think everybody agrees that's a good project for the county, for the cities, and for economic development as a whole. So why not look at, so we're talking about the priorities. We can just leave this alone and look at that route. And then, because waiting, like I said, year after year, and which possibly could happen, right? More than likely, unless it's a top 3 or 4 priority, but those are already funded, so that's not going to help. Why don't we look at seeing and talking to David and see if there's a possibility where this could be funded with the penny money?
Well, we certainly can look at that. What I wanted to mention more generally is just a reminder that on October 19th, we have this joint city-county meeting.
We do.
And that meeting is intended to be an opportunity for us to bring these ideas and concerns and priorities on the table for general discussion.
And that's great. So guess what? That's the 19th, so you have plenty of opportunity to research this between now and then and work with David and see if that's a possibility. Because how awesome would it be for you able to come that day and go, guess what, guys?
We got money.
We have a solution.
We'll do what we can, yes.
So I think you have some direction there.
I've got some clear direction. Thank you,
I
Mr.
think from
Chairman.
multiple, right? I'm hearing quite a few, I know.
That would make for a great meeting,
Right.
wouldn't it?
Commissioner Mariano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad to see it's, again, being surfaced and so positively talked about. And I remember the last time we talked, we didn't want to jeopardize what was already in the funding process, stuff that was already funded. That's why we expected to go up to about number 5. So my chagrin of seeing it down as low as 13 still bothers me. Is there any harm in moving this project up to number 5 to any funding that's going on this current year? So I don't affect anything that's above it.
Need a running start.
There's a reason. Is there anything that's going to fund out of balance what's coming up right now? It's already funded and set to go, those top 4 projects.
Not for what we're doing on the capital side. So it will not impact what I have in the program and what we have currently funded with DOT.
Can use it for that, why can't you use it?
Okay, down below, does it hurt anything other than it's going to move them back for the following years?
That's,
So we don't know. All right, so
That's your
here's
choice.
my thought. Right now, we're talking about economic development money, which I think is very valid. Matter of fact, in the penny, we also have transportation dollars that are also in the penny as well. You could even look to say, you know what, may have extra money to go that way as well. The city of Port Richey went and got some money. It didn't get fully put through, so it didn't happen. I think if we move this up to number 5, if the city then goes forward and goes lobbies the state legislature coming up, they may get matching money if the county if the Board of County Commissioners decides to go say, you know what, this is a good idea, we're going to go put up half the money or a third of the money. We want the state to match the other part. You may get some impetus to get this thing funded instantly, which wouldn't even hardly affect any of the projects or any of the projects coming up down the road, and give us a chance to get it funded. I think it carries a lot of merit, especially with the dredging that they've already set up and gone. The RESORC money's committed. And I'll tell you, Werner Boyce Park, if you haven't been there, that is such a great connection now, too. So the city's got some great impetus. We've got some great impetus to do redevelopment. I think it's something we need to move up to number 5, especially where I'm hearing not that there's any objection to the top projects and nothing below it. So I'm going to we move this project up to number 5.
Second.
Discussion. So, Commissioner, again, what if you could get this funded now? this doesn't guarantee you get it funded.
Oh, I agree.
You know, so what let Chris look into this and see if he can get funded now, because that would take a board vote. Now, listen, so right now you've got, I don't know what your thoughts are, but you got at least 3 commissioners up here for sure, possibly 4, too, that say, hey, we'd be game for that if it's allowable under that. And look how quick it could happen then.
And you're going to know that before the 19th. Chris is going to,
Yeah.
whatever that
Look how
meeting's
quick that
happening,
could
I think that's what they're suggesting, because even if you put it at 5, you're not sure or
Instead of waiting,
guaranteed
you're
that it's going to
still
be.
waiting. Why don't we see if we can get it done?
Could we wait and,
Let me
What is the
explain further.
okay,
State legislature's meeting right now, right? The next one's a month away. I want to see staff moving this thing forward, to go put some numbers together, bring something back with us, et cetera. If you make it number 5 and the state legislature sees it's number 5, you get a much better chance of getting funded when it's sitting back at number 13.
And what's the harm of moving it to 5?
Hopefully we'll get the economic development money or the penny money. One source of the
I'm going
transportation
to
or
let
otherwise.
Mr. Casper say something, and we'll jump back.
Mix the two, though.
Thank you.
I think that's what you were trying to say, but that might help, but go ahead, Craig.
This was not listed as an action item, and so per the public participation federal public involvement rules, you can put it on for next month to make it an action item, but you can't move it this month.
Which actually
Let
may.
me adjust my motion.
Right. So and they may all work out, because between the information
fine.
you're going to collect by the 19th, between all the conversation we've had here today, between what you're bringing us back next month, it seems to me that, and going to Commissioner Moore, you've got a lot of heads that are nodding here in approval. I think all of us want to work to make I think we want to get things done here, so I think I think it's very much part of what right, what's all happening now. So you withdrawing the is that what I heard?
Yes, and believe me, I've seen heads nod for 13 years about different things and not get done this way. I'm pushing for motions, but I will withdraw my first motion. Withdraw the second.
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 Seconded it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so having withdrawn that, I'm going to make a motion that we bring this back as an action item to move this up to number 5 with the best cost numbers, projections, and other alternatives that could be funded as well.
There's a motion on the table.
All right, I'll second that.
There's a second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So staff, you have some,
Very clear
hopefully
and-
some direction after that?
For the record, could you just say the name of the project for the record?
Yes, because it's not, I can't see it
It
on here
is
right
the
now.
underpass at,
It's River Gulf Road / James Clark Street / Bailey Avenue from Grand Boulevard to Bayview Street under US 19 Coatue River Bridge.
That clarifies it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Casper, I think we're on C. It's 12 o'clock. You tell us how far we can keep going down before I start to lose some bodies here.
well, I will just move through these really quick. Item D is we have to adopt a new plan by December 2019. We will kick that plan off in about a month or two. We would like to use Federal Highway's suggested long-range plan update format, which is called PlanWorks. It is available on the web. We'll be bringing a formal presentation back to you on that. But again, we have to adopt a plan December 2019, and so we'll start it probably December 2017 or January 2018, about a 2-year process.
Great, thank you, sir. That brings us to E, the adding city explaining.
We have on-call contracts with 2 consultants. The 3-county area is using some software that neither of the consultants have expertise. Tyndall Oliver has traditionally done the socioeconomic forecast for the area, and so they are adding a sub-consultant that has expertise with the software that the 3 counties using so that we can be consistent across the 3-county area in our socioeconomic update.
Are there any questions on that? Okay, great. F, public input helps identify top regional.
The regional transit study has been ongoing. There are 2 corridors, I-275 connecting Wesley Chapel with St. Petersburg, and the CSX North project connecting from USF to downtown Tampa. Those 2 corridors scored well, and then 3 possible technologies within those corridors work. They're light rail, rubber tire inside a lane, so like a BRT, and then commuter rail. Public involvement, public outreach is one of the criteria that will be used to decide which of those corridors to go forward with. So we have sent out information trying to get the public to weigh back that the corridor that actually impacts Pasco County, 275 from Wesley Chapel, should receive as many votes as possible. So we're just asking you all to reach out on that to get more of that weighting.
Questions? Thank you, sir. This is the Pasco County Public Transportation updates.
I don't see Kurt here.
Okay, so just wait.
We're good.
Oh, they added service, expanded their service at night along Route 19.
I
So
think they were really good about getting that out. I think a lot of us go through the cities and got a lot of information.
Needed,
so-
that's for sure.
Yeah,
Ask my FDOT question before I go.
okay. You're right now? Okay, so then you want to just bring us up to date on some of these noted items here on meetings and other business?
The packet is pretty self-explanatory. If you have any questions on them, please feel free to contact me anytime, and I'll get information.
All right, thank you. Before I open up for public comment, I think Commissioner Moore, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. So I have a question for FDOT, real quick. On state-maintained roads, i.e., say 54, what's the DOT policy on pond maintenance?
Pond maintenance would be, if it's directly related to the drainage of the roadway,
Yes.
we would be responsible for maintenance.
Okay, easy enough.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Are there any other board comments, questions? This is public comment time. Is there any in the audience who would like to ask the MPO board that's left here? Any questions? Seeing none, we'll adjourn the meeting. It's 12:06 p.m.
Good job.
Thank you all. Trying to keep
Good
us,
there, good job.
like your charters.